I'm trying to get to the root of that disagreement. For me, it seems as though you're saying, look, I don't want to censor the stereotypes that I find are true.
Okay,
and I think a lot of people are like arguing that,
except that nothing I've said comes within 100,000 miles of that silly ass straw man.
Yeah, it got a little contentious, Ben, but look, no hard feelings, obviously, and we're just we don't mean to got you on anything, so that's not really my goal. But
no, I just I think the only fair enough. I think the only part I think that there's like a certain point where obviously there's a balance between keeping the conversation moving and everything, and like sometimes it's just like
and looping. I understand. Yeah.
There's a really specific argument I want to make, and I know you know where I'm going, but right. Like I don't think.
Look,
you're right.
I honestly do not think that you ever address and people in the chat are asking about it. Nobody thinks that you address the difference between prescriptive and descriptive. So okay. I'm going to leave it there. Look, you can listen to the conversation. I tried my hardest, and look,
I've never, I'm sure, I think the way that chats tend to work. Look, I think.
Well, look, I myself am using the chat as a verification of me, and I don't think you ever address the difference between the prescriptive and descriptive. Look, if an evangelical went into a classroom and started teaching it, I think it's obvious.
Yeah, that would be a case where you're obviously on the prescriptive side.
Yes,
but okay. as I said earlier, and I think you ignored this, you never responded to it.
Okay.
As I said earlier, you yourself, in laying it out, admitted that there was a lot of blurry gray area between the two. That you said, oh well, people might say they're being descriptive, but we really know they're being prescriptive. And my point was, where do you want to err, right? Like you're probably going to get a little bit wrong regardless, right? They have these are
you clean up. Look, you clean up the law and make it more specific. Look, you and I can have that conversation, but it's a completely different conversation. Like if you want to argue that the law is unclear and that we need to make it clear, okay, we can have that debate. Yeah, but you are literally arguing that we shouldn't have a law, that people should be able to talk about whatever they want in the classroom, and I think that's ridiculous.
Okay, but I explicitly said more than once, I don't think people should be able to teach whatever they want.
Okay.
I said hold on though, right? I said that obviously there are going to be standards, there are going to be limits, but the question is, are we more concerned about people, the bad ideas getting in because we haven't set strict enough limits, or are we more concerned about discussion of controversial ideas, the kind of things that I think are really core to the function of schools as places that can promote critical thinking and make better citizens, that happening less because of a chilling effect, because we've gone too far and we're being too strict. Now, if you just add the word prescriptive to the law, the reason that wouldn't assuage my concerns is that I think oftentimes it's a judgment call. Like, are we, unless you're actually saying, hey, children, you all have to agree with this, just to be clear, I think that it's a blurry judgment call.
Look, there are cases, and this is why I keep bringing the cases up where it's not blurry. That's why I keep bringing up the cases where it's like obvious racial stereotypes about certain groups. Look, that's not blurry. Like if they're teaching racist stereotypes in the South about black people, that's a very specific thing that I think we should make laws saying, hell no, you can't do that.
I agree with that. And as I said several times, that like if it was just the exact reversal of that, I would also agree with making that off limits.
Well, but this is where we disagree.
My concern is, yes, this is where we disagree, but I just object to being told I didn't address this. I addressed this really explicitly, right? My concern is about drifting away from the thing that would be the exact reversal and extending the taboo further and further, that more and more things count. And I think that there is going to be, in practice, when it comes to things that people are likely to actually say, I think there is going to be a lot of judgment call about whether something is drifted into being too prescriptive. Now, could you maybe write, like, am I going to rule out absolutely that, that the I don't know, Virginia scraps this and they pass the Adam and Sitch statute that like is that
clear. Very concise.
That's like a perfectly written one that, I'm not concerned about. then like maybe I would support that. Yeah, maybe I can't rule that out. I'd have to look at it, right? But I can't rule it out. But like I think there's a more general issue here, right? Which is, do you think that that these laws are this is a sort of like appropriate response to stuff that's like actually happening at a scale that merits the response? Or do you think that this is largely pandering to a
that's like a completely different third argument.
No, but I think that like an overblown panic in right-wing media, that's
a third argument. That's a totally third argument. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is likely to have like a worrying, chilling effect. Like, do you
look, look, the argument that a lot of people are making is CRT creates negative stereotypes about white people, and they don't like that. They don't want to be taught to their kids. I think a lot of people think that's a big deal. So this third argument that you're bringing out, like, should we care if schools are teaching racist stereotypes about white people?
Over and over again earlier, but they have a
but can you understand
this conversation? But like, I don't think. Yes, I understand people are.
Can you understand people would be upset about that?
What they're calling CRT, which again I think generally has very little to do with it. But yes, I think what they're calling CRT. They oftentimes, again, I don't deny, this is all stuff I said earlier in the conversation. I don't deny that you're going to find cases that you and I would agree about. This is a very big country with a lot of teachers in it. You are going to find stuff that we would agree are objectionable, but I don't think that anything that's happening at like any real scale is enough to justify the sort of urge to sort of shut down classroom discussion about these kinds of ideas. And I'm more concerned about being too censorious, like making.
Look, I can think of like half a dozen examples where you would totally flip. If you had
I would assume there are a whole lot more than half a dozen.
Would you be bringing out this
millions of people?
Look, would you hold on?
A lot of public school teachers. I'm sure you can find dozens of examples that we would agree on, but that's a little bit of a separate question from whether we're talking about something that, as a social phenomenon, right, that rises to the level that. We should be more worried about that than we're worried about the chilling effect of overly broad censorious laws that are going to make teachers nervous.
You can say it. Look, you said it three times already. Let's just move on.
Okay, no, I'm happy to. All of this started because you said that I didn't respond to something that I did respond to, but I was like, look, I could say it again if it wasn't.
No, let's not. Look. First of all, we should be wrapping up. Okay, like I said, like this is a little contentious. Obviously, we have a fundamental disagreement, and I'm trying to get to the root of that disagreement. For me, it seems as though you're saying, look, I don't want to censor the stereotypes that I find are true.
Okay,
I think a lot of people are like arguing
except that nothing I've said comes within 100,000 miles of that silly ass straw man. And in fact, I've said many times, right, that we're talking about ideas that I myself disagree with, right? So it's obviously not the case that I'm saying, I don't want to censor stuff that I agree with. What I'm saying is that I want to err on the side.
Give us an example of something that you would want to censor then.
I think I've agreed with several over the course of this conversation, but sure, I think that creationism in the biology class, I think I agreed with that several times. I think that if you have crude racial stereotypes in either direction, then I would agree with that. Again, my concern is about over broadening that to the point where we're saying that saying the structure about unconscious racism or whatever amounts to being the same thing as an exactly reversed racial stereotype, which I don't think is accurate. But yeah, I think that there are things.
So how is my assessment of straw man then? You're basically saying what I said.
No, I'm not, because you were saying that what I'm saying is I don't want to censor stereotypes that I agree with. And all of the ideas we've been talking about are
you just said that the stereotype in CRT is not a direct reversal of the racist stereotype that I suggested.
Yes.
I would argue that it is, but you're saying,
yeah, I don't think it is. That doesn't mean I agree with it. That's like, I disagree.
But you're saying that we shouldn't censor that one because it's not a direct, and how is that any different than saying, well, it's not direct because I kind of agree with that stereotype?
There are lots of ideas that I disagree with that I don't think are as bad as sort of directly doing crude racial stereotypes in either.
Okay.
Right? That's like, there are, this is like, I mean, again, I think like, this is why I don't like calling everything like fascist or whatever. There are lots of things I disagree with that fall short of fascism. That's like, I don't want to. And, the question is not, should you have no rules whatsoever? No, we've agreed. That would be silly. The question, but is also not just like, oh, don't censor these specific things because I agree with them. We're talking about stuff I disagree with, but I would like to, generally speaking, all else being equal, I would like to err on the side of more free discussion of controversial ideas, not less. That's the core of the disagreement.
Especially if they're ideas you agree with, right? Obviously.
Yeah, that's definitely what I said.
No, I'm making a bit of a joke there, but obviously, look, I don't want to straw man you. So
yeah, I mean, like again, I disagree with this stuff. Mm-hmm. I just don't want to censor it. I think that's a pretty straightforward combination of positions.
Right. I understand. Look, we get it. You want to censor things, but just egregious things. And this is not egregious. Yeah. Sitch, do you want to look? We really should wrap up. So
yeah, I tried to, and then you had another with the conversation.
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.